Okay, it's on? Yeah, okay. Good morning, everyone. As Daniel said, I'm Sebastian Damm, and today I want to talk about how to annoy fraudsters using plain Kamailio methods. In this case, it's just the hash tables. And thanks, Fred, for yesterday's talk. And he already mentioned the hash tables as one of the most versatile modules, and that's why we are using them. Just a short summary of what we are doing. We are a voice over IP service provider based in Düsseldorf. We are doing our stuff since 2004. Started first in Germany, later that year in the UK. Started with a private customer product and then later added a business customer product with a hosted PBX and all-in-one solution. Then in 2012, we became full MVNO in the back then E+, now Telefonica network, which gave us the opportunity to add mobile services to our products. Right now, we have some 100,000 active customers and more than 100 million minutes going through our network. So, as I said, I wanted to talk about fraud, and although there are many types of fraud, the one that was bothering us the most was the international revenue share fraud. And this type of fraud works like that. There's some fraudster who has either credentials or access to a device that's for our service. And so he's calling expensive international numbers from exotic destinations like Cuba, Palestine, or similar. Then those calls go to a SIP provider, to a carrier, and either one of those carriers in between short circuits those calls, or it even ends up on the other side, and either from the carrier in between or from the target, the caller gets some kind of payout. That would obviously not work if you had to pay for those calls, but if they are for free, then you can probably make your living out of it. There are even sites on the internet where you can search for destinations, and you can see what kind of payout you're getting. Those are only the demo numbers, but if you register with that service, then you probably get access to a lot more numbers. As said, the fraudster does need some credentials or access, and he gets it by either hacking some PBXs, and that seems to be fairly easy these days. There are thousands or millions of asterisk or free PBX installations in the wild that are really badly secured, and so that's no problem at all. I think there are search engines for that too. The other thing is he could steal credentials from voice over IP devices. That's a bit harder because there's a lot of times there are firewalls or NAT in front of those devices, so there's no direct access. In Germany, there's one big provider of hardware, and that's AVM with their Fritzbox product. And back in 2014, they had a really big security issue where from all of the devices that were out there, you could read the credentials saved in there. And that was 3 years ago, but we right now see that still those kinds of credentials that have been used back then are being used in fraud cases. So that's actually pretty pretty bad, but yeah, zip credentials are usually pretty long lasting, and so there are a lot of credentials that still do work. So what does international revenue share fraud do with the customer? Yeah, he gets hit by a bill of $1,000 or more. Then he starts arguing of where the credentials got stolen. You have to persuade him or convince him that, it was on his side, not on your side. He's still gonna be mad at you, and at the end, you're probably gonna lose this customer, and he will tell the world that voice over IP is insecure. So we want to prevent that. So Kamailio comes with a lot of modules built in. So we looked at them. There's like the Pike module that gives where you can rate limit overall the traffic. Then you have the rate limit, pipe limit, where you can do it on a per request or per user basis. With the permissions module, you can do some general white blacklisting. The geo-IP helps you to eliminate traffic from some parts of the world. User blacklist, yeah, the user has to configure it, and the dialog module, yeah, you can limit the amount of concurrent calls. But those modules are all kind of static, and or need to be configured on a user basis or something like that. So we wanted to have something more dynamic. And what we wanted to do is detect abused accounts and the IP address where it was used from. And then we want to block the IP address, and not for this single account, but instead for all of the accounts of all of our services. So anybody see something familiar? Yeah, that looks a bit like fail to ban. But I've tried using fail to ban once in a high load scenario, and it really it almost brought down my server. So I thought that's gotta go somewhere, or we have to implement that inside of Kamailio. So this is our setup. You see on the left side there is the customer, and then we have some load balancers and proxy servers. After that, there are gateways that we are using asterisk for them, and they are connected to the billing system. And then after that, there's the wholesale carrier. There are two special things that we built into our billing system, and that one thing is if you sign up with our service, then first you are not allowed to call those expensive and exotic destinations. We noticed that like 99% of our customers won't ever call one of those numbers, and so it's perfectly fine to first block it, but give the user the possibility to unblock it by himself. So whenever you call one of those numbers that are blocked for the first time, you get an announcement saying that right now he's not able to call this number, but he can go into his web account and enable this destination, or all of those expensive destinations at once, and then he will be able to call this number. So for a real customer, it's only a small issue, but for fraudsters, that's pretty effective. And the other thing is we, of course, had fraud cases in the past, and we've taken all the numbers that were used in these fraud cases and put them in a blacklist. And we update them regularly whenever new fraud cases come in. So now if a call goes out, a regular call, then yeah, it goes like to the load balancer, which uses the dispatcher module, and then maybe the call ends up on the proxy number 3. It goes to the gateway, and after it has passed the billing check, it goes out to a wholesale carrier. Now, what happens if you do that with like a Cuban number? Then it goes to the gateway. Gateway asks the billing, and then billing says no. That's basically good, at least for this one call. But if we don't do anything with this information, then we have just blocked this one call, and the fraudster will come back either with a different account or calling a different number, and eventually he will hit some number that is not in one of our block lists or blacklists yet. So what we want to do is we want to tell the proxy server about it, that we just blocked this call. And it would be easy to just add some information to the reply. But as far as I know, Asterisk still doesn't have a function to add a custom zip header to the reply. So we built kind of a workaround. You can add headers to outbound calls, but not to the reply. I don't know if Matt is telling me something different. Yes. You can? He said not right now. So what we are doing is we're calling an AGI script, and this AGI script is first extracting the IP address of the peer where the call came from, and then open up a raw zip socket or raw UDP socket, and then handcraft a package. And we use a custom method there. You see it's called Sipgate, and then we include some information like the customer username, the source IP address, and the destination that has been called. And then we just send out this package to the proxy server with a fire and forget thing. On the receiving side, we have two hash tables. The one we call evil calls that has an auto expire value of half an hour. So each entry is in there for half an hour, and that then gets cleaned up. And the other one is the blacklisted IPs with an expire value of 2 hours. And in the main route, we somewhere catch the Sipgate method and then send it to a register evil calls route. And later in the main route, we check on each invite that's coming from a customer that whether the source IP address is listed in the blacklisted IPs hash table, and if it is, we send them back a 403 call prohibited. The register evil calls route basically just generates a pretty unique string for each call. We take the call ID, timestamp, and the from tag, and then adds an entry into the hash table with the key that starts with the source IP address and then this unique string. And after inserting it, we use one of those functions that come with the hash table module. Fred yesterday talked about the other one. This one counts all the keys that match on a certain pattern. And so we count all the entries in this hash table that start with the IP address that we just saw. And then if there are 20 or more occurrences in the last half an hour, then we send this IP address to the blacklisted IPs hash table. So now proxy number 3 knows about this single call, but for the next call, this call could end up on proxy number 2 and 1. So we need to do something about it that both or all of our proxy servers know about this call. And there is another module, fortunately, which is called DMQ, and that enables communication between different instances of Kamailio. And all you have to do is enable the DMQ in the HTable module and then add to the definition of those hash tables, you add the option DMQ replicate equals 1. And after that, you don't have to change anything, and the proxy number 3 will receive this call, write it into the hash table, and the DMQ module will take care of replicating the traffic or this entry to the other proxy servers. Now, eventually, the fraudster will have called 20 or placed 20 calls that were blocked by our billing system, and now the IP address is blocked on all of the proxy servers. And as I said, it's not only for this single customer; it's for all of the customers that are using our service right now. Another thing we use to detect those stolen accounts is fraudsters typically use always the same types of user agents. And they are not really common for regular customers. And so what we do is we have another hash table which will hold registrations from those types of user agents. And there's another route that gets called on each register, and it checks whether the user agent is one of those that we have identified to be used by fraudsters. And after that, we insert an entry into this hash table with the combination of the source IP address and the username. And if there are more than, or at least 5 different users that register from the same IP address with one of those evil devices, then we can say for pretty sure that there's somebody trying to use one of or stolen accounts. And then we insert the IP address into the blacklisted IPs hash table. That's actually helping us because after being blocked, the fraudster still gets a reply from us, but he gets a 403 that could be a general error because of this account is not working. So the fraudster will then go on and use even more accounts and tell us about which accounts he knows. And so we block those, or we know about those accounts and can inform our customers even before anything happened. Does it work? Yes, we have it in our, we have enabled this fail to ban thing for 4 months now, and most of the times there's no damage at all anymore. On the lower part of this graph, you see the occurrences of calls going into this or being blocked by our billing. There are, of course, from time to time customers that do call those numbers and they get blocked at first, and so an entry is written. But that doesn't matter because unless they try it 20 times and hear this announcement, you please go into to your website, nothing will happen to that IP address. But that's a screenshot taken last Friday, and here you see there's a spike in the suddenly. And I looked into this, and some fraudster gained access to a free switch PBX and then started calling out. And he started calling at 10:16 in the morning. And on the top chart, you see almost immediately got blocked because after 2 minutes, he already had 20 calls that went into our block, and then after 2 minutes, he was this IP address is blocked for 2 hours. So that's pretty effective. Now, what does that do to the customer satisfaction? Yeah, there are almost no costs. There's no arguing. We have to inform, or we inform customers about stolen credentials or hacked PBX. Well, that's still a manual process, and somebody's doing that. But they are really grateful for that. And if we are talking about those stolen credentials, then the fraudster will use a totally different IP address than what the customer is using. And so the customer won't even notice anything about it, because he can use his account the same way as he is normally doing. And yeah, sometimes you even get praises. That's a card that one of my colleagues got that when being on a totally different conference, and there was another participant of this conference that said that came up to him and said, "Wow, you really saved my ass. We almost had called for tons of money to Albania, but you automatically blocked this number and saved us a lot of money." And that's what you want to have, happy customers. And that's the end of my talk.
So hopefully now you have a real example of how simple tools in Kamailio can help you for your business. We have first question from David.
Hi.
Hi.
This is great stuff. As you know, there's a whole bunch of initiatives going on. I know Alex is going to speak about something later. XConnect, we're starting some sort of joint, also some sort of pub sub. We're more focused on the phone numbers. Would you share this information with other carriers, and then they would share with you? In other words, I'm not talking about a cost model. I'm talking about something where this is really good information, and just like you're being hacked, the minute you block them, they're just going to go to another carrier. And if you could share that with them, and they could share that with you, we could cut this down even more by sharing this information. I know there's privacy rules, but we'd have to pick some sort of threshold that's low enough so that, you know, maybe it's really, 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 really fraud. And again, you don't have to take the, you don't have to block them.
Yeah.
And especially if it's something like this that, you know, times out after 30 minutes or after an hour, and then you let them gain access again, so that you're just stopping those. Because we see the same kind of patterns, these like spiky, very quickly they try to make many calls.
Yeah.
And if you block it, so if you share the information,
I talked to Alex yesterday, and we will talk about it. And we are already sharing our knowledge of numbers that are definitely fraud numbers. There's a closed forum in Germany, the anti-fraud forum, and we are a member of that, and we share in there already. But such an automated way to
a whole bunch of different initiatives that are trying to...
But an automated way to share occurrences of fraud and block those IP addresses on not only our systems, but your systems too, that would be even better, yeah, of course.
So one more initiative to unite the other initiatives, right?
I've got a question here about the DMQ. You share the information between a few proxies using DMQ. So can I get an idea how many proxies are you sharing information with?
Right now, that's only 4 proxy servers.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you have like a feeling how many proxies will be a reasonable number for sharing using DMQ? Yeah, because it's like passing SIP messages around.
Yeah, but it's...
the scalability of the DMQ,
I mean,
have you got a feeling for that?
If you look at this chart, I mean, there are, I don't know what time slides there, even if those are minutes, then it's still like 10 occurrences in a minute or so. So it's not a lot of traffic. We've tried using DMQ for the user log thing, and as long as you don't restart any proxy server, then it will still work with a lot of traffic. like more than 100,000 users registering every 5 to 10 minutes. That won't be a problem for the DMQ module. But for the user log thing, that's a different story if you try to load those entries from DMQ when starting up.
Yeah, but it was Julian yesterday here. He did a contribution of packing user log
grabbing
contacts.
more than
yeah, so there is an improvement on that already there. But in the next release, I have Sandro here from the friendly scanner. He doesn't like the solution, so let's see.
No, great solution. What's the percentage of customers who actually enable premium numbers, calling to premium numbers?
I don't have a real number, but as I said, it's probably really 99% of those of our customers that don't ever use or need to call to those destinations.
Yeah. And the second question is, do you have a problem with the time when the attack starts or the abuse starts and the system kicking in, or is it pretty instant?
Yeah, as you see on this chart, it was 2 minutes, and I looked into this special case, and there was the fraudster didn't find any usable number, so there were only those 20 calls going being blocked by the billing system, and then and after that he couldn't do anything anymore.
Okay, Sebastian, thank you. Really appreciate it.